She entered the music academy on a quiet morning carrying a folder that held worn sheet music and years of silent discipline. Her name was Anna, and she had learned early in life how to stay unnoticed. She dressed plainly not out of insecurity, but because it allowed her to move through spaces without questions. She had enrolled in the program to formalize something she already lived and breathed, yet no one there knew her story. The academy was known for its strict teachers and demanding environment. Students walked the halls with tense shoulders and focused expressions. Practice rooms echoed with fragments of difficult pieces, and instructors moved with authority, correcting posture, tone, and timing. Anna observed all of this calmly. She listened more than she spoke and practiced. When rooms were empty, her playing was controlled, restrained, and deeply intentional, shaped by countless hours alone at the piano long before she ever stepped. Classroom. Anna had grown up in a household where music was not a hobby, but a language. Her father had been a concert pianist, who believed mastery came from humility and repetition. He taught her early to listen before playing and to respect silence as much as sound. By the time she was a teenager, she had already performed pieces many professionals avoided. Yet when life changed and her father passed away, she stepped away from public performance, choosing privacy over praise. At the academy, her teachers saw only what was on the surface, a young woman with simple habits and quiet manners. They placed her in intermediate classes, assuming she lacked advanced training. Anna did not argue. She understood that proving oneself too quickly often closed doors. She preferred to wait and let truth surface naturally. One afternoon during a group session, a teacher announced that each student would be required to perform a challenging classical piece. Chosen at random, the room shifted with nervous energy. Some students protested quietly, others smiled with forced confidence. Anna listened without reaction. When her name was called, the teacher handed her a piece known for its technical difficulty and emotional complexity. The teacher spoke firmly, suggesting it would test her limits. There was a tone in the voice that suggested doubt, perhaps even expectation of failure. A few students glanced at Anna with curiosity, others whispered, unsure why she had been assigned such a demanding work. Anna nodded politely and accepted the music. She had played the piece many times before, though never in this setting. She felt no fear, only awareness. The teacher explained that there would be no excuses and no adjustments. Each student would play regardless of readiness. The instruction felt harsh, but Anna understood that pressure revealed character. She returned to her seat and studied the sheet briefly, more out of respect than need. The notes lived in her hands, already shaped by years of practice and memory. As the session continued, students took turns. Some struggled, others managed, but none fully embodied the piece. When it was finally Anna's turn, the room felt heavy. The teacher reminded her to follow the score precisely and not to rush. Anna stood, walked to the piano, and adjusted the bench. Her movements were calm, unhurried, and grounded. She placed her hands on the keys and paused, not to delay, but to connect. The room was silent, though no one noticed the change. Yet Anna began to play softly, allowing the opening to unfold with clarity. Her touch was controlled and intentional. Each note carried weight, not force. The melody moved naturally, shaped by understanding rather than effort. Within moments, the atmosphere shifted. Students who had been distracted leaned forward. The teacher, who had been preparing to interrupt, stopped moving. Anna's playing revealed not just technical skill, but deep familiarity. The difficult passages flowed smoothly without tension. Her posture remained relaxed, her breathing steady. The piece demanded both strength and restraint, and Anna delivered both without display. She did not play to impress. She played to communicate. The piano responded warmly, filling the room with sound that felt alive and grounded. The teacher watched closely, now no longer skeptical but attentive. As Anna continued, the room transformed. Doubt dissolved into silence. Respect replaced judgment. The teacher realized that this was not a student struggling to keep up, but a musician revealing mastery. The realization came quietly, but fully. The forced challenge had uncovered something none of them expected. When the final notes faded, Anna lifted her hands gently and stood. She did not look around or wait for reaction. She simply returned to her seat. The room remained still for a moment as understanding settled. No one spoke right away. The teacher finally nodded slowly, aware that assumptions had been broken. Anna sat calmly, knowing that this was only the beginning. The truth had surfaced not through words, but through sound. And from this moment forward, nothing in that room would remain the same. If any dots or ellipses appear, rewrite the content without them. The silence that followed Anna returning to her seat felt different from anything the class had known before. It was not uncomfortable, but heavy with realization. Students shifted slowly in their chairs, unsure how to respond. The teacher stood still near the piano, holding the sheet music loosely as if it no longer mattered. What had just happened did not fit into the structure of lessons or expectations. It challenged the order of the room. Anna sat quietly with her hands folded, resting her gaze downward. Her face showed no pride or tension, only calm. She had not planned to reveal anything. She had simply followed the instruction given to her and played as she always had. The music had spoken on its own, and she trusted that fully. The teacher cleared their throat and spoke Anna's name, asking where she had learned to play like that. The question carried a different tone, now no longer demanding but curious. Anna answered honestly. She said she learned at home growing up, and that she had played for many years before coming to the academy. Her voice was soft, But steady, she did not list achievements or mention her father. She did not feel the need. Some students exchanged looks, quietly connecting pieces in their minds. Others felt a mix of embarrassment and admiration. The whispers from earlier returned. But now they carried respect rather than doubt. One student who had struggled earlier lowered his head, thinking about how quickly he had judged Anna. Another watched her with new attention, wondering what else she carried silently. The teacher asked why she had not mentioned her background during placement interviews. Anna answered that she was asked about formal education, and she answered truthfully she had not studied in institutions. She explained that music for her had always been personal before it became professional. The teacher nodded, slowly absorbing this perspective, which was unfamiliar in such a rigid environment. The rest of the class continued, but the mood had changed. The teacher corrected students more gently and listened more closely. The forced performance had shifted something fundamental, the idea that skill could exist quietly without credentials. Unsettled, long-held assumptions. Anna noticed the difference, but did not comment. She returned to listening and observing as she always had. After class, several students approached her. Some asked about her practice routine. Others asked how she stayed calm under pressure. Anna answered, simply saying she focused on the sound and trusted her hands. She did not offer techniques or advice beyond honesty. Her presence was reassuring rather than intimidating. One student apologized awkwardly for earlier comments. Anna smiled softly and accepted without dwelling on it. She understood how environments like this shaped behavior and fear. She had lived with similar pressures before and learned that forgiveness often freed the giver as much as the receiver. Over the next few days, teachers watched Anna more closely. They noticed her consistency, her patience, and her deep listening during critiques. She did not rush to speak or assert herself yet. When she did offer thoughts, they were thoughtful and precise. The academy began to feel different to her, not hostile, but watchful. She remained grounded, focusing on her own work. One instructor invited her to stay after class and asked her to play again, this time not as a test, but as a conversation. Anna agreed and chose a piece she loved rather than one assigned. She played with warmth, allowing space and silence to shape the sound. The instructor listened deeply and afterward admitted that they had not expected such maturity from someone so quiet. The admission was honest and humbling. Anna left the room feeling neither triumphant nor relieved. She felt centered. She knew now that the environment had shifted and that more attention would follow. She prepared herself not by hiding, but by staying true to herself. She understood that professionalism was not about dominance but integrity. The academy slowly adjusted to her presence. Teachers asked for her insight during discussions. Students listened. When she spoke, her reputation grew, quietly built on respect rather than spectacle. She continued practicing during off hours, choosing solitude when needed. She did not seek recognition, but she did not avoid it either. She allowed it to exist without defining. At home, Anna reflected on the experience. She thought about her father and the lessons he taught her about humility and patience. She realized that this moment honored those lessons more than any stage ever could. She had not defended herself. She had simply played. The forced challenge had revealed more than her skill. It had revealed the limits of assumption and the power of quiet mastery. Anna understood that from this point forward, her journey would change, not because she wanted it to, but because truth once revealed could not be unseen. She remained ready to move forward, not with expectation, but with trust in the language. She knew best. Music. In the weeks that followed the class where Anna played the difficult piece, the academy continued its routines, but something subtle had shifted beneath the surface. Anna felt it in the way teachers looked at her longer before speaking, and in how students waited for her reactions during group sessions. She did not seek this attention, yet she did not shrink from it either. She understood that once truth appeared, it created movement, whether welcomed or not. Anna kept her habits unchanged. She arrived early, practiced quietly, and left without lingering. Her playing during lessons remained focused and disciplined. She did not add flourish or exaggeration to please anyone. She played as she always had, guided by listening and intention. This consistency confused some who expected a change after recognition, but Anna knew that real professionalism meant stability, not performance. One afternoon, a senior instructor invited her to a private evaluation. This was unusual and carried weight within the academy. Students whispered when they heard Anna had been called. Anna listened without reaction. She gathered her sheet music and followed the instructor into a larger practice room with a concert piano. The room felt formal but not cold. The instructor asked her to choose any piece and explain why she selected a composition that emphasized balance and control rather than spectacle. She explained that the piece taught patience and responsibility to the sound. She said it required the player to listen deeply and shape emotion carefully. The instructor nodded, clearly intrigued. When Anna played, the room filled with quiet intensity. Her control was effortless, not rigid. Her hands moved with confidence, shaped by long familiarity. The instructor listened without interrupting, taking no notes, simply observing. When the final sound faded, the instructor thanked her and asked about her long-term goals. Anna answered honestly, saying she wanted to keep learning and sharing music without losing herself in expectation. That answer stayed with the instructor. They admitted that many students arrived driven by ambition. Rather than understanding Anna's perspective challenged the structure. They were used to evaluating talent. The conversation shifted from assessment to dialogue. The instructor asked what Anna believed music education should protect. She replied that it should protect curiosity and sincerity. The instructor fell silent, absorbing the weight of that statement. As news of this private session spread, more instructors grew curious. Anna was invited to observe advanced classes and attend master discussions. Usually these spaces were reserved for top-ranked students. But Anna's inclusion was quiet and unannounced. She took a seat, listened carefully, and spoke only when invited. Her insights were grounded and thoughtful, never critical, yet always precise. Some students struggled with this change. A few felt threatened, believing their positions were being challenged. Others felt inspired, seeing that another path existed. Anna noticed these reactions, but did not engage. She knew comparison only distracted from purpose. She focused on her own growth and let others manage their own feelings. During this period, Anna began revisiting pieces she once avoided. She approached them not to conquer difficulty, but to explore meaning. Her practice sessions became deeper, less frequent, but more intentional. She allowed rest and reflection, understanding that discipline included care. She felt stronger not just in technique, but in self-trust. Outside the academy, Anna continued living simply. She cooked basic meals, took evening walks, and played at home without structure. The piano in her apartment carried the marks of long use and memory. She played for herself, revisiting fragments from childhood and moments shared with her father. These sessions grounded her, reminding her why she began. One evening, she found an old notebook filled with handwritten notes from her father, instructions, reminders, and short reflections. She read through them slowly, recognizing how deeply they shaped her approach. One line stayed with her. It said, "Play honestly, and let the sound explain you." Anna closed the notebook, feeling aligned with her path. Back at the academy, an unexpected challenge arose. A group performance was announced, and Anna was assigned a leading role. Some questioned this decision, quietly believing she had not earned it through the usual system. Anna accepted the role without comment. She prepared carefully, not to prove herself, but to support the group. She understood leadership as listening first. During rehearsals, she guided gently, offering suggestions only when helpful. She encouraged balance and awareness rather than dominance. Over time, the group responded positively. Their sound improved, becoming cohesive and expressive. The initial resistance faded, replaced by trust. The performance, when it came, felt unified and sincere. Afterward, a teacher remarked that Anna had changed the way the group worked together. Anna listened politely. She knew that change came not from authority, but from presence. She returned home that evening feeling content, not because of praise, but because the music felt true. The forced performance that once felt like pressure now felt like a doorway. It had led not to exposure, but to understanding. Anna continued forward, aware that her journey was unfolding steadily, shaped by patience, honesty, and deep listening. She did not know where it would lead, and she did not need to. Music guided her as it always had, and she followed with quiet confidence. As Anna continued her studies, the academy no longer felt like a place she needed to endure. It became a space she could move through with awareness and intention. Teachers no longer watched her to test her, but to understand her. Students approached her not with curiosity alone, but with respect. She noticed how conversations changed around her, becoming quieter, more thoughtful, as if her presence encouraged listening rather than competition. Anna remained careful not to let attention shape her identity. She remembered the years when music was private and sacred, played late at night without applause. Those memories kept her grounded. She knew that skill without humility quickly became hollow. She chose to arrive early and leave late, practicing when halls were empty, allowing herself moments of solitude within the growing noise of recognition. One teacher in particular began to engage her in deeper discussions about interpretation and philosophy. Rather than technique, they spoke about why certain passages demanded restraint and how emotion could exist without excess. Anna shared her thoughts, carefully explaining that music carried truth best when the player trusted silence as much as sound. These conversations felt equal and sincere. They reminded her of conversations with her father when she was young. As part of the advanced program, Anna was asked to attend a workshop led by a visiting pianist known for brilliance and strict standards. Many students felt intimidated by this figure and prepared obsessively. Anna approached the workshop differently. She practiced steadily, but focused on presence rather than perfection. When her turn came, she played with calm focus, letting the music unfold naturally. The visiting pianist listened without interruption. When Anna finished, there was a brief pause. Then the pianist asked her where she learned to listen so deeply. Anna answered honestly, saying that listening came before playing in her upbringing. The pianist nodded and commented that many musicians played loudly, but few listened clearly. That moment stayed with Anna because it confirmed something she had always believed but rarely heard acknowledged. Outside of lessons, Anna began mentoring a few younger students informally. They approached her for guidance not because she offered it, but because they felt safe asking. She helped them break down fear by simplifying tasks and focusing on sound rather than speed. She reminded them that music was not a race, but a relationship. Over time. Their confidence grew, and with it their joy. These moments of teaching felt natural to Anna. She did not feel like an authority, but like a companion on a shared path. She saw her younger self in their uncertainty, and responded with patience. She understood now that her role extended beyond performance. It included presence, empathy, and trust. The Academy administration eventually took notice of the subtle changes in environment. Participation improved, tension lessened, and collaboration increased. While no single cause was identified, Anna's influence was quietly recognized. She was invited to join planning sessions focused on curriculum development. Her input was valued because it came from experience rather than theory. Anna spoke gently in these sessions, emphasizing the importance of listening space and emotional development alongside technical training. Some resisted these ideas while others embraced them. The discussions were slow but meaningful. Anna learned that change often happened gradually through dialogue rather than force. She was content contributing in this way without seeking credit. In her personal life, Anna continued honoring simplicity. She lived alone, kept routines steady, and spent evenings reading or playing quietly. She did not chase social recognition or public praise. Instead, she focused on maintaining balance. She knew that inner stability was essential to sustain any outward growth. One evening after a long day, she returned home and sat at her piano without sheet music. She allowed her hands to move freely, exploring sound. Without structure, these moments felt deeply restorative. They reminded her that music existed beyond evaluation and expectation. It was a language she spoke fluently when she allowed herself to be fully present. As weeks turned into months, Anna reflected on how the forced challenge that once felt unfair had become a catalyst. It revealed not only her skill, but her values. It showed her that professionalism was not about dominance or display, but about integrity, consistency, and care. She carried these lessons forward, quietly shaping every interaction. The Academy continued evolving, and Anna evolved with it. She did not aim to stand out, yet she became a reference point for authenticity. Her journey was not about arrival, but about alignment. Each step brought her closer to a life where music and self existed in harmony. Anna understood now that being a professional did not require constant proof. It required commitment, honesty, and respect for the art. She moved forward with confidence rooted in listening, trusting that her path would continue unfolding naturally, guided by the same principles that had always shaped her sound. Anna began to feel the weight of responsibility as her presence within the Academy continued to grow. It was not a burden placed on her by others, but an awareness that her actions influenced the atmosphere around her. Students watched how she handled pressure, how she responded to praise, and how she treated moments of failure. She understood that professionalism was not proven in performance alone, but in daily behavior. She remained consistent in her routine, arriving early, warming up slowly, and listening carefully to the room before touching the keys. This ritual grounded her. It reminded her that music began before sound, through attention and intention. Teachers noticed that when Anna practiced nearby, the environment softened, conversations lowered, and tension eased. It was as if her calm invited others to breathe. One day, the Academy announced a formal evaluation concert where selected students would perform for visiting faculty and potential sponsors. This event carried significance and often created anxiety among students. Many prepared obsessively, focusing on perfection and approval. Anna felt the pressure, but approached it differently. She viewed the concert as another opportunity to speak honestly through music, rather than as a test of worth. She spent weeks preparing, not by increasing hours, but by deepening focus. She revisited the piece chosen for the concert, exploring every phrase and silence. She asked herself why each moment existed, and what it wanted to say. This process felt intimate and demanding. It required vulnerability rather than force. She trusted it fully. During rehearsals, other students expressed nervousness. Some doubted their readiness. Anna listened, offering reassurance without comparison. She reminded them that the audience was human, and that music was meant to connect rather than impress. Her words did not erase fear, but they softened it. She saw shoulders relax and expressions ease. As the concert approached, a teacher asked Anna to lead a rehearsal session for the group. This was an unusual request and carried quiet authority. Anna agreed, approaching the role with care. She guided warm-ups, encouraged listening, and asked students to focus on shared rhythm and breath. The rehearsal felt collaborative rather than hierarchical. The music improved naturally. On the day of the concert, the hall filled with quiet anticipation. The stage lights were bright, and the piano polished. Students waited backstage, adjusting clothing and reviewing passages. Anna stood quietly, eyes closed, hands relaxed. She centered herself not through control, but through acceptance. She knew she would play as she always had, with honesty and care. When her turn came, she walked onto the stage with steady steps. The audience settled, and silence filled the room. She sat at the piano, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands gently on the keys. She paused briefly, connecting breath to sound, then began. Her playing was clear and grounded. Each note carried intention, shaped by years of listening. The difficult passages flowed naturally, not as a display of skill, But as part of the musical story, the hall felt attentive and still the audience leaned in not because of volume or speed, but because of sincerity. Anna felt present throughout the performance. She was aware of the space, the piano, and the listeners, yet not distracted by them. She followed the music, allowing it to lead rather than forcing direction. When the final sound faded, she lifted her hands slowly and stood. The applause followed, warm and respectful. She acknowledged it calmly and left the stage. Backstage, other students congratulated her sincerely. Some expressed gratitude for her guidance during rehearsals. Anna thanked them quietly, recognizing that shared effort had shaped the experience. Teachers observed her with renewed respect, not only for her playing, but for her leadership. After the concert, feedback sessions were held. Visiting faculty spoke about technical achievement and artistic presence. When Anna was mentioned, it was in the context of integrity and depth, rather than brilliance alone. This distinction mattered to her. It affirmed the values she had chosen to uphold. In the days that followed, the academy felt lighter. The concert had brought a sense of unity and accomplishment. Anna returned to her routine without change. She continued practicing, teaching, and listening. She did not dwell on success or seek more recognition. She understood that moments passed, but principles remained. One evening, she returned home and played quietly for herself, letting sound move freely without structure. She felt gratitude not for applause, but for alignment. Her life now reflected her values. Music was no longer something she defended or proved, it was something she lived. Anna realized that the teachers who once forced her into a difficult challenge had unknowingly given her an opening, not to demonstrate superiority, but to reveal truth. That truth continued to guide her, shaping each step with patience, humility, and clarity. She moved forward grounded and ready, knowing that professionalism was not a title, but a way of being. After the evaluation, concert life at the academy settled into a steadier rhythm. The tension that once filled the halls before major events softened, and students seemed more open with one another. Anna noticed this change during daily routines. People spoke more quietly, listened more fully, and practiced with greater patience. She understood that this shift did not belong to her alone, but she accepted that her way of moving through pressure had influenced others. Anna continued teaching younger students and assisting in group sessions. Her approach remained gentle and consistent. She focused on helping students trust their ears and bodies, rather than forcing results. Many arrived frustrated, believing they lacked talent. Anna listened carefully and guided them step by step, reminding them that progress often came quietly. She watched confidence grow slowly and found deep meaning in these moments. One student in particular struggled with fear during performance. Her hands shook, and her breath became shallow each time she sat at the piano. Anna recognized this fear immediately. She invited the student to play in an empty room without expectation, no audience, no evaluation, just sound. Over time, the fear softened, replaced by curiosity. The first time the student played through an entire piece without stopping, she smiled in disbelief. Anna felt a quiet sense of fulfillment, knowing this change would stay with the student long after lessons ended. Teachers began seeking Anna's perspective more often, not as a formality, but as genuine interest. They asked how she built trust so naturally. She answered honestly, saying that she listened without rushing to correct. She explained that music responded to care and attention, not force. Some teachers adopted these ideas, others resisted, but the conversations themselves felt meaningful. As her role expanded, Anna became more aware of balance. She guarded her personal practice time carefully, knowing that giving too much without reflection could dull her connection to music. She continued rising early, practicing slowly, and allowing silence between phrases. She knew this space was essential. It reminded her who she was before expectations and recognition. Outside the academy, Anna maintained a simple life. She walked familiar streets, cooked modest meals, and spent evenings reading or writing reflections. Music remained central, but it no longer consumed her identity. It existed alongside rest and observation. She understood that artistry required a full life, not constant output. One afternoon, Anna was invited to participate in a regional workshop focused on music education and emotional development. This was a new space filled with experienced educators and performers. She entered with quiet confidence and listened carefully during discussions. When she spoke, her words were thoughtful and grounded, drawn from lived experience rather than theory. Others responded with interest, asking questions and sharing stories. The exchange felt mutual and respectful. During the workshop, Anna led a small session on listening exercises. She guided participants through simple practices focused on breath, tone, and awareness. The room grew quiet as people followed her lead. Many expressed surprise at how grounding the experience felt. Anna smiled, knowing that simplicity often carried the deepest impact. Returning to the academy, Anna felt renewed clarity. She recognized that her journey was expanding beyond one institution, but she did not feel pressure to chase opportunities. She trusted that meaningful paths would continue to appear naturally. She remained attentive to alignment rather than ambition. At the same time, she faced moments of fatigue. Balancing teaching, performing, and mentoring required care. She learned to say no when needed without guilt. She understood now that boundaries protected quality and presence. This was another lesson her father had taught her long ago, one she had fully embraced. During a quiet evening practice session, Anna reflected on the early days at the academy when she had been underestimated and forced into a difficult challenge. That memory no longer carried weight or resentment. It felt distant and instructive. She saw how far she had come, not in status, but in self-trust. The teachers who once doubted her now treated her as a colleague. They consulted her and respected her choices. The dynamic had shifted from authority to collaboration. Anna welcomed this change. While remaining grounded, she knew that respect was sustained through consistency, not assertion. As the term progressed, Anna continued shaping a learning environment rooted in listening and patience. She watched students grow not just musically, but emotionally. They learned to handle mistakes without panic and success without arrogance. This transformation felt more important than any technical achievement. Anna understood that professionalism was not defined by titles or roles. It was defined by care, discipline, and humility. She lived these values daily through small actions and quiet choices. Her journey continued unfolding, guided by the same principles that had shaped her sound since childhood. She moved forward with calm assurance, knowing that music would continue to lead her where she needed to go, not through force or expectation, but through honest listening and steady presence. As the academy year moved toward its close, Anna felt a gentle sense of completion rather than urgency. She had learned to recognize this feeling through music. When a phrase resolved naturally, without force, her life had begun to feel the same way, grounded and whole. She no longer felt the need to anticipate what came next because each day felt meaningful on its own. Her presence within the academy was now woven into its daily rhythm. Students greeted her with ease, teachers included her in conversations naturally, and new students heard about her not as a story of surprise, but as an example of steady growth. Anna noticed that her name was no longer followed by explanations. It simply existed, which felt right to her. She continued mentoring students who struggled not only with music, but with confidence. One young woman reminded Anna of herself years ago, quiet, reserved, and hesitant to take space. Anna approached her gently, encouraging her to trust her sound rather than hide it. Over time, the student began to sit taller, breathe more freely, and play with growing assurance. Watching this change brought Anna deep satisfaction, because she knew it extended beyond the piano. The academy invited Anna to help design a small program focused on supporting late starters and non-traditional students. This invitation mattered to her because it addressed something deeply personal. She worked carefully with faculty to create a space where experience was valued alongside technique, and where age and background were not barriers. Participation grew steadily, and the atmosphere felt welcoming and sincere. Anna also found herself reflecting more often on her father. His teachings had guided her every step, even when she was unaware of it. She remembered how he never rushed her, never praised excessively, and never criticized harshly. He listened and waited, trusting that understanding would grow in time. She carried this memory with gratitude, recognizing how rare that gift had been. In quiet moments, she still played alone, without structure, letting her hands explore sound freely. These sessions were not practice or preparation. They were conversations with herself, sometimes calm, sometimes searching. She allowed emotion to surface without judgment, knowing that honesty was the source of her strength. Occasionally, Anna was asked to share her story publicly. She chose these moments carefully. When she spoke, she focused not on the challenge she was forced into, but on the importance of listening and patience. She emphasized that skill could exist quietly, and that pressure did not create truth, but revealed it. Her words resonated especially with those who felt unseen. One evening after a small performance, a listener approached her and said that watching her play made them feel less afraid of failing. Anna thanked them softly, knowing how powerful that feeling was. She understood then that her journey had given her a language beyond music. It allowed her to meet others in vulnerability without fear. As opportunities continued to appear, Anna evaluated each one through a simple question: does this align with who I am now? If the answer was yes, she accepted with care. If not, she declined without regret. This clarity brought peace. She no longer felt pulled by expectation or comparison. Her path was clear because it was her own. Toward the end of the term, the academy held a closing gathering. Rather than a formal concert, students and teachers shared music freely, without evaluation. Anna played briefly, choosing a simple piece that emphasized warmth and connection. The room felt relaxed and open, filled with quiet appreciation rather than applause. She felt deeply at home in that moment. Afterward, she walked through the halls one last time before summer break, listening to the echoes of music and conversation. She remembered how intimidating these spaces once felt, and how far she had come without changing who she was. That realization settled within her gently. Anna stepped outside into the evening air, feeling gratitude for the journey, not just for recognition, but for growth. She understood now that being a professional was not about proving expertise. It was about living with integrity, listening deeply, and allowing truth to speak through action. As she walked home, she carried no grand plans, only quiet confidence. Music would continue to guide her, as it always had. She trusted that, fully ready to move forward into whatever came next, grounded, steady, and whole. As the new season began, Anna stepped into her life with a calm sense of continuity. Rather than change, she did not feel as though one chapter had closed and another had begun. Instead, everything felt like a steady extension of what she had already been living. Music, teaching, reflection, quiet purpose flowed together naturally. She understood now that fulfillment was not found in moments of recognition, but in alignment between who she was and how she lived. Anna continued working with students from many backgrounds. Some were young and eager, others older and uncertain. She welcomed them all with the same patience. She no longer thought about whether she belonged in these roles. That question had dissolved through experience. Her confidence was no longer something she summoned, it was something that existed quietly beneath her actions. Occasionally she returned to the memory of the day she had been forced to play the difficult piece. It no longer carried emotion or tension. It felt like a lesson that had completed its work. She saw clearly now that the challenge had never been about difficulty or authority. It had been about truth meeting resistance, and moving through it without force. That understanding stayed with her as a reminder of how life often unfolded. Anna began spending more time composing, not with ambition, but curiosity. Her pieces were simple and reflective, shaped by moments rather than concepts. She played them for students and small audiences, allowing the music to exist without explanation. People responded quietly, often sharing personal reflections rather than praise. Anna listened, knowing that connection was the true measure of success. Her relationship with the academy evolved further. She was no longer seen as an exception or example. She was simply part of the foundation. Her ideas influenced how students were evaluated and supported. There was more emphasis on listening, emotional awareness, and sustainable practice. Anna had not pushed for these changes. They emerged naturally through conversation and consistency. Outside of her professional life, Anna remained grounded. She valued routine, simplicity, and silence. She cooked, walked, read, and rested without guilt. She understood that rest was not absence, but preparation. Music lived more richly in her when her life was balanced. One evening, Anna was invited to attend a small gathering honoring educators who had shaped the community. She listened as others spoke about dedication, legacy, and impact. When it was her turn, she spoke briefly. She said that teaching and music were acts of listening, and that when people felt heard, they often found their own way forward. Her words were met with quiet agreement and understanding. As years passed, Anna aged gently. Her hair showed signs of time. Her hands carried deeper memory, yet her playing grew clearer rather than weaker. Experience had refined her touch, allowing her to express more with less. She welcomed this change, knowing that maturity brought depth, not loss. Students who once learned from her returned years later to share their journeys. Some had pursued music, others different paths. All spoke of confidence, patience, and trust. They did not always mention notes or technique. They spoke of how music had taught them to listen to themselves. Anna received these stories with gratitude, understanding that influence extended beyond intention. In quiet moments, Anna still played alone late at night. She did not perform pieces. She explored sound, letting emotion guide her hands. These sessions felt like conversations without words, honest, complete, and peaceful. They reminded her of her father and the beginnings of her journey. She felt his presence not as memory, but as continuity. Anna never sought a grand conclusion to her story. She understood that life did not resolve like a final chord. It continued evolving, shaping and reshaping meaning. She remained open to learning, knowing that curiosity kept her grounded and alive. The teachers who once underestimated her became colleagues and friends. The students who once whispered learned to listen. The academy itself became more humane, more attentive, more balanced. Anna saw this not as her achievement, but as a shared growth. She was grateful to have contributed quietly. In the end, Anna lived not as someone who proved others wrong, but as someone who lived truthfully. Her professionalism was not defined by titles or recognition, but by consistency, care, and honesty. Music remained her language, and listening her guide. She continued forward without needing applause or validation. The piano was still there, waiting each day, offering sound and silence in equal measure. Anna sat, played, listened, and lived. And that was enough. That was enough.